Hi, it's Katrina. What if everything you thought you knew about the ancient world was a little off? Today we are diving into the biggest question of all. Who really ruled the ancient world? And trust me, it's a wild ride you won't see coming.
Where the gods played Jenga.
This place defies all explanation. High in the Lebanese mountains east of Beirut, there lies a site so baffling, so grand, it makes you question whether ancient humans built it or whether someone accidentally left a galactic construction kit behind.
Welcome to Baalbek, home of Roman temples, cosmic mystery, and stones so big they would make your local quarry weep in defeat. Officially a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1984, Baalbek is that rare blend of archaeology meets conspiracy meets architectural marvel. If you've ever stared at a stone and thought, sure, I could probably lift that, Baalbek's Trilithon would like a word. Because I assure you, not even your whole family could lift this thing. Not even if they had a forklift.
Before getting too hot and heavy, let me rewind to the beginning. In 2900 BC, Baalbek was a fresh Canaanite settlement where people worshipped Baal, the storm and fertility god. They also revered Anat, his sister/lover, but mostly it was Baal's city.
In the 2nd century AD, the Romans rolled into town and went full HGTV. They looked at the massive stone platform already sitting there, shrugged and said, let's put a temple on it. And thus was born the Temple of Jupiter Baal, a Roman remix of the Canaanite god Baal with their own sky daddy Jupiter. Fusion religion, baby. It was awesome. And the temple was huge. It was so big that even thousands of years after it was built, Mark Twain visited the place and it made his mustache quiver. The temple is certainly impressive, but it's not the temple I'm here to discuss. It's the temple's foundation, which is made of 3 monoliths so big that modern engineers don't even like talking about them. Each of these stones measures over 60 feet long, 12 feet thick, and weighs a casual 800 tons. Trying to lift one of these stones is like trying to deadlift 130 elephants. Amazingly, the stones weren't placed on flat ground. Somehow, they were lifted 20 feet up and embedded in an ancient wall, creating the temple's foundation.
Keep in mind that the Romans didn't build the foundation. It was already in Baalbek when they took the place over. All the Romans did was build their temple on top of it. So, who made the foundation stones? This is where things get a little spooky. No one knows how those stones got there. Some suggest the stones are a remnant of a civilization far older and far more advanced than the Roman Empire. Some people even think the stones were part of an ancient landing pad for alien spacecraft, because, of course.
Who was the world's first king? Once upon a very long time ago, someone came up with an idea. One guy in charge of everything. All the power shoved into the hands of one dude, be he worthy or not of wielding such power. And thus, kingship was born.
But who was this first king? Was he a Neanderthal? Was he part of an African tribe? Or was kingship created by the Sumerians? The records are fuzzier than Bigfoot's family photo album. But don't worry, we're going to get to the bottom of this mystery right now.
According to Mark Munn, history professor at Penn State, trying to pinpoint the first king is like trying to find the world's first dad joke. It's ancient, untraceable, and probably happened way too early in the morning. The further back you go, the less written history there is. The earliest evidence of kingship appears to be a list carved into ancient cuneiform tablets found in the early 20th century in the ruins of Mesopotamia. It's called the Sumerian King List, and it gives us a wild ride through the history of Sumer's earliest kings.
The issue is that scientists can't tell where the history ends and mythology begins.
According to this list, the first king was a guy named Alulim, who ruled the city of Eridu for a respectable 28,000 years. Either that's a typo or Alulim was secretly a vampire with a great skincare routine. After Alulim, the second king of the world was Gushur, who ruled for a more reasonable but still insane 1,200 years.
Are these real? Was Earth's first king some sort of vampiric alien with longevity that would make Methuselah jealous?
Eckhart Fram of Yale University, a professor who has read these tablets, says the early kings listed on them are likely mythical. Either they were made up by bored scribes or inserted into the king's list as a way of blending myth and reality. Either way, Eckhart seriously doubts the existence of alien overlords. Eckhart Fromm and other scholars point to Me-Baragesi of Kish in ancient Sumer, circa 2700 BC, as the first true king that historians have legit receipts for. Inscriptions on vase shards confirm that he was a king 4,700 years ago. Me-Baragesi reportedly beat up on the neighboring kingdom of Elam in what is now modern-day Iran. This proved early on that being king meant smacking your neighbors with a club and taking their lunch money.
But wait, there are other contenders outside of Mesopotamia.
John Darnell, Egyptology professor at Yale, said the tomb of a king named Scorpion is buried at Abydos in Egypt, dating to about 3320 BC. That is 600 years older than Me-Baragesi. Scorpion's tomb held royal regalia, early writing systems, and a whole lot of sand.
Who he was or what he accomplished was a mystery, but Scorpion, if that was his real name, does seem to be the earliest documented king. He was ruling over Egypt before it was even called Egypt, before it was even a country or a kingdom. Kings are overrated though. What about queens?
Glad you asked. Meet Kubaba, possibly the first queen in history. She allegedly ruled the third dynasty of Kish in what is now Iraq around 2500 BC. Legend says she started out as a tavern keeper and she went from pouring drinks to calling the shots. Get it? Shots. So, who ruled first? Maybe it was Alulim, a freakish alien vampire god. Or maybe it was King Scorpion, the guy who belongs in a Mortal Kombat game. Either way, it's clear that the second humanity started grouping itself into civilizations, somebody stood up and took charge.
And the rest is monarchy. Sorry, I mean history. And now for a quick break because it's shoutout time. I want to give a huge thank you to the OMG channel for supporting this channel. It really means a lot and we wouldn't be here without you. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to join the Origins Explained family.
Caligula's long-lost garden.
There was a brief period in time in which the world was ruled by someone you might call a total lunatic. He was the worst.
If you thought your landlord was bad, let me introduce you to Caligula, Rome's most notoriously unhinged emperor who once tried to make his horse one of the top members of government. Now, thanks to some very surprised construction workers near Vatican City, it turns out Caligula also had himself a little garden oasis. The emperor's forgotten garden from 2,000 years ago was unearthed completely by accident. It's been one of the most shocking discoveries of the last little while, and it went down like this. While building an overpass at Piazza Pia, workers stumbled on some very Roman ruins, complete with travertine walls, terracotta figurines, and a lead water pipe. The water pipe is engraved with Gaius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, which was the name for Caligula. It may as well have said Caligula was here. According to archaeologist Alessio de Cristofaro, the newly uncovered garden sits in the middle of what used to be the Horti Agrippanae, the estate of Agrippina the Elder, Caligula's mom. The garden had likely been passed down to Caligula, the deranged heir to the family real estate portfolio. The weirdest part about this whole thing is the pipe graffiti, because in the early 1900s, another pipe was found with the name of Julia Augusta on it, Augustus's second wife and Caligula's grandmother. Apparently, in ancient Rome, plumbing was the Instagram bio of the elite. I guess they wanted everyone to know whose aqueduct you were drinking from. What do you suppose Caligula was doing in his garden? Probably plotting an assassination or two. Rome ruled the world for a long time, and Caligula was one of the lucky few, or maybe I should say unlucky few, who spent time at the helm. And now archaeologists have found his private garden, where he liked to hang out before being murdered by his own security detail just 4 years into his reign. He didn't last very long. In Rome, you couldn't be a crazy emperor for long because you ended up assassinated. Knowing the danger, would you still want to be emperor? When giant mushrooms ruled the earth. How do you feel about giant mushrooms? Mushrooms so big you could climb them like a skyscraper. Mushrooms the size of mountains. Because although I've spent today's video talking about ancient kings and mysterious civilizations, the truth is that there was actually a mushroom kingdom. Before trees shaded the land, before dinosaurs wagged their lizard tails and roared at the moon, Earth was run by giant fungal spires. There was a time when the planet's tallest living things were towering 24-foot tall mushrooms. Okay, they weren't exactly as tall as mountains, but still,
24 feet. Can you picture 24 feet? That's the tallest tree in your yard, but a mushroom. Nothing even remotely similar exists on the planet today. Scientists have named these prehistoric giants prototaxites. They existed during the Devonian period, about 420 to 350 million years ago. During the Devonian period, life on land was just getting started. Plants were still knee-high wannabes. Animals hadn't even figured out legs yet. And then there were the prototaxites with 3-foot-wide stalks towering over the baby ferns like fungal behemoths out for revenge. Everything else was tiny, said Kevin Boyce, who is a Stanford geophysicist and professional ancient fungus enthusiast. He went on to say that these giant mushrooms would have stuck out like sore thumbs. Giant, weird, spongy thumbs. When scientists first unearthed these fossils, they had no idea what they were looking at. Were they trees, seaweed, giant rolled-up lettuce leaves? By 1859, someone officially called it a cone-bearing plant. But as the decades rolled on, guesses included kelp, lichens, and alien leftovers kept popping up. Even Kirk Johnson, director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History, admitted that he thought it was shaped like a chunk of wood. The anatomical clues were all over the place, like a biological jigsaw puzzle missing the box. Scientists squinted through microscopes and argued over every tissue sample. Some swore it was a plant, and others swore it was a fungus. Nobody could believe that a 24-foot-tall mushroom existed. What must that have looked like? You know Kings Canyon, right? With those enormous trees reaching for the clouds. Now imagine walking through Kings Canyon, but all the trees are super tall mushrooms. You'd think you stepped into Alice's Wonderland, or maybe Mario. Wait a second though, because once scientists figured out the truth, things took an ugly turn. This wasn't your Mario-style mushroom kingdom. These things were not cute. No polka dots, no fairy circles, no cozy woodland. They were giant, gnarled, vaguely threatening pillars of fungal dominance, like something out of an evil version of Snow White. Amazingly, there are no known living descendants of these mushroom powerhouses. They came, they loomed, and they disappeared, probably muttering something profound in spore language as they went. The founder of Taoism never even existed. What if one of history's most revered figures never existed? It wasn't always kings and queens who ruled the ancient world. A lot of the time, it was religious leaders who guided people through difficult times. Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Zoroaster, to name a few. In China, the biggest name in religion was Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism. However, new research is showing that he may have never existed, which means that someone who wanted to keep to the shadows was pulling the strings of this ancient religion. Lao Tzu is credited with a bunch of stuff, including founding Taoism. He also wrote the Tao Te Ching, and apparently rode off into the mountains on a buffalo when he grew fed up with politics. The problem modern scholars are having is that they can't find any records proving this religious leader was real. Did China just hallucinate this guy? Lao Tzu is said to have lived sometime around the 6th century BC during the Zhou dynasty. Some say he was Confucius's older colleague, while others insist he was born 200 years later. One historian claims he might have been a court astrologer, sort of like John Dee in England. But that's a story for another time. Ancient historian Sima Qian, bless his footnote-loving soul, couldn't keep Lao Tzu's story straight either. In one text, Lao Tzu is a wise librarian. In another, he's a wizard named Lao Dan. In a third version, he becomes Lao Laizi, a philosophical shapeshifter. Things get more muddled when you look into the royal records. During the Tang dynasty, rulers claimed to be descendants of Lao Ji. They even called him Taisheng Xuanyuan Huangdi, which apparently means mysterious and primordial supreme emperor. Not a bad title, if I say so myself. One legend claims that before Lao Tzu saddled up his buffalo and took to the hills, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, a short but deep masterpiece about balance, humility, and not micromanaging your citizens into revolt. The book became the foundation of Taoism, a philosophy that tells you to go with the flow, embrace simplicity, and not overthrow governments. This last bit has some modern scholars wondering if Taoism and Lao Tzu weren't invented by the emperors to convince their subjects not to revolt against them. Remember the extreme longevity of Alulim? Well, Lao Tzu lived a long time too. He was allegedly reincarnated 13 times, with his most recent form lasting 990 years. Being immortal definitely has its benefits,
especially when you're the creator of one of the biggest religions in Asia.
Here's a fun fact about Taoism. It started as a calm, inner peace kind of ideology designed to protect royalty. Think yoga, but with metaphysics and no overpriced mats. But centuries later, it took a turn.
In 184 AD, during the Yellow Turban Rebellion, thousands of peasants adopted Taoism as the flag for their uprising against the Han Dynasty. Taoism said the emperor shouldn't treat people like garbage, and the rebels were very tired of eating boiled sadness every day.
The rebellion was crushed, but it helped destabilize the Han Dynasty and usher in the Three Kingdoms period. As for who Laoji was, doesn't really matter. Historians are still arguing whether he was real or just a metaphor. And hey, maybe in 2,000 years, historians will be arguing over whether Batman was real or just a comic book character. Either way, Laoji's ideas endured and Taoism is still alive and well today.
Napoleon's preserved thing. Well, friends, here's a conversation I never thought I'd be having. Remember Napoleon Bonaparte, conqueror of Europe, military genius, fashion-forward wearer of bicorn hats? He was the guy who tried to rule the whole world a few centuries ago, right before Hitler tried it and also failed. What if I told you there is a place where you can see Napoleon's wiener? There, I said it. Napoleon's penis can be found in suburban New Jersey. And I'm dead serious. How it got there is a story that not even Netflix will touch. But luckily I'm here to spill the beans. The day was May 5th, 1821. The location was the island of St. Helena. The great Napoleon Bonaparte exhaled his final breath. He was only 51 years old, but had accomplished quite a bit in his life. Napoleon's personal doctor performed the autopsy in front of 17 very awkward onlookers. According to legend, the doc held a grudge against Napoleon for one reason or another. In a final act of vengeance against the exiled French emperor, the doctor snipped off his manhood. The doctor then took the emperor's business and recorded it as being 1.5 inches long. I can't speak as to the truth of that, but it's what the doctor wrote. Tony Perrotet, who wrote a book on the subject, said that it looked like a little baby's finger or a piece of beef jerky. Try scrubbing that out of your brain. From Corsica to Colombia, the emperor's wiener went on a wandering journey. After its unsolicited removal, it ended up with a priest named Abbé Ange Paul Vignali. From there, Napoleon's royal relic passed down through the family like a cursed heirloom that no one wants to display on the mantle. Eventually, in 1924, it found its way into the hands of American rare book stealer A.S.W. Rosenbach, who did what anyone with a preserved historical phallus would do. He displayed it in Manhattan's Museum of French Art in 1927. It was happy there, but fast forward to 1977. Dr. John K. Latimer, a Columbia University urologist, who clearly took his work home with him, bought Napoleon's dried-up ding-dong at a Paris auction for $3,000. He bought it, never showed it to anyone, never told anyone, and kept it hidden in his desk. Latimer passed away in 2007, leaving the infamous French digit in the care of his daughter, now 75, who has mostly kept quiet about the mummified manhood, which is fair. But if it were me, I'd probably show it to you on Origins Explained. And so, the personal body part of one of history's most notorious would-be world conquerors remains in a FedEx box in New Jersey. Knowing this fate, don't you think it kind of sucks to be emperor? You die exiled on an island and people steal your genitals. Were dinosaurs secretly driving Teslas? 65 million years ago, while a T-Rex was busy chasing something it couldn't catch with its tiny arms, there might have been something else going on. Something far more advanced than lizards hunting other lizards. A civilization of humanoid beings may have ruled the Earth at the same time dinosaurs lived. This isn't the plot of the next Jurassic World movie or a stoner theory cooked up during a late-night rewatch of Ancient Aliens. This is the Silurian hypothesis, a very real scientific idea dreamed up by astrophysicist Adam Frank and NASA climatologist Gavin Schmidt. And yes, it's named after a race of reptilian time travelers from Doctor Who. Because, although not all nerds are scientists, all scientists are indeed nerds. The Silurian hypothesis asks one simple brain-imploding question. If a technologically advanced civilization lived on Earth millions of years ago, would anyone alive today even know it? The answer is a little bit scary. Experts say no.
If there was a vast technological civilization, all traces of them would probably be gone by now. Not even a cartridge from a 65 million-year-old Game Boy would be left. Sure, we've got dino bones and trilobites to spare, but those guys stuck around for millions of years. Homo sapiens have only been building things with metal for a few thousand years, and we've only been driving cars and launching satellites for about 100. If a civilization before us followed the same short, explosive timeline, their leftovers might be buried deeper than your high school MySpace page, which means the evidence is long gone. Which means, as far as scientists are concerned, it never happened. But it might have. You would think a past civilization will leave behind skyscrapers, phones, or at the very least a fossilized fidget spinner. But the Earth is a relentless recycler. Mountains rise and fall, oceans change places. Continental plates grind anything on the surface into oblivion. Even our plastic, which is stubborn enough to survive fish stomachs, will eventually crumble into dust-sized particles. In 60 million years, there likely won't be a single shred of plastic left. Does that mean we don't exist right now? Of course not. The real trick, Adam Frank argues, is to look for the same types of planetary scars that humans are creating today. Take, for example, the Anthropocene, which is the name of our current era of human-dominated everything. One of its big signatures is carbon spikes. Humans have pumped so much CO2 into the atmosphere that future civilizations of highly intelligent raccoons will be able to read it in the ice core record like a bad Yelp review. Theoretically, scientists today should be able to look for ancient CO2 increases and identify past civilizations. And behold, that's already what they've done. And what they found stinks of ancient nuclear war. 56 million years ago, Earth had a hot flash known as the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum. It became so hot that the ocean turned into acid and the North Pole became a jungle. Scientists know how hot it was, but nobody knows exactly why it happened. Was it natural, or was it caused by a race of intelligent creatures going through the same technological boom as humans are today? Those are really the only two options. Either Earth had a meltdown and hit the panic button, or a civilization became advanced enough to start polluting the planet. Maybe an earlier version of humans caused the climate to change so much that it wiped them out. Or maybe as soon as these earlier humans became a nuclear power, they used their power to destroy and scorch everything. It makes you fearful for the future. Are modern humans bound to repeat the same mistakes of our prehistoric predecessors? Will another group of humans be wondering the same thing in 40 million years? I know the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum was 56 million years ago, and that was long after the dinosaurs went extinct. Still, if a civilization could have arisen back then, why not even earlier? How many human civilizations have risen on this planet, only to fall back into the dust of time? Let me know what you think about this theory in the comments, and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. The oldest trading network in history. What if I told you that cavemen had crayons? In the wilds of Kenya, surrounded by dusty hills, ancient lava flows, and the occasional fossilized hippo jaw, a team of researchers unearthed what looked like a bunch of weird little rocks. Little rocks that turned out to be prehistoric crayons. You're not going to believe how old they are. Most people would have kicked the rock-looking things aside, not thinking twice. But luckily, it was Rick Potts, Smithsonian paleoanthropologist, who found them. Rick identified them as crayons from 300,000 years ago. These charcoal-colored lumps turned out to be black pigment nodules, the oldest ever discovered. But the crayons themselves weren't the most important part of the find. The truly remarkable revelation came when scientists realized they didn't originate anywhere near the site. The crayons came from nearly 20 miles away. That doesn't sound like much, but remember, this was 300,000 years ago. Homo sapiens had barely dried off from their emergence from the primordial goo of evolution. People weren't migrating 20 miles, which means either someone hiked all that distance with rocks in their pockets, or they traded for the crayons. Scientists are going with door number 2. They think the crayons are evidence of the earliest trading network on the planet. And that means that cavemen were networking like they had LinkedIn profiles etched in stone. Was this the original Silk Road? From the moment Homo sapiens arrived in the world, were they bent on world domination? According to Rick Potts and his co-authors, including Alan Dano and Alison Brooks, The crayons are part of a broader pattern of behavior that includes complex tools made from materials hauled from distant regions. Some tools came from 15, 20, even 30 miles away. This probably wasn't a global trading network stretching from Africa to South America, but it was a big deal. These little crayons are artifacts from the beginning of globalization. They prove that humans could trade practically before they could walk. No wonder kids love Pokemon cards. Another big question surrounding this discovery is whether humans were already smart when they invented these early tools, like crayons and hand axes. Or did the act of designing and using those tools rewire human brains and make us smarter? It's the chicken or the egg all over again. Were humans smart because they built tools? Or did building tools make humans smart? Either way, trade has been the one thing that has helped civilization after civilization dominate the world. The next time you're swapping a snack for someone's phone charger or giving your buddy a large pepperoni to help you move, remember that you are tapping into 300,000 years of evolved human strategy. The mythical origin of the Greeks. What if the heroes of myth were real? Cue the dramatic harp music and pan to a windswept hill in ancient Greece. Somewhere Homer is hunched over some plank scrolls with a feather quill, and somewhere else a wooden horse is being wheeled into the city of Troy with a crew of very quiet warriors inside. The Sumerians may have come first, but there's no denying the astounding influence the Greeks have had on all of human civilization. Now, a new study has proven just how mythical the Greeks were. There is still a little bit of ancient magic running through the veins of modern Greek people. After centuries of debate, highbrow theories, and a whole lot of archaeology, scientists have now confirmed that modern Greeks are the real-life descendants of the legendary Mycenaeans, as in the helmet-wearing, spear-flinging heroes from the Iliad and the Odyssey, and from the Trojan War. Odysseus, Agamemnon, Achilles, all your favorite heroes weren't just bedtime stories with a sword fetish. They were actual Mycenaeans, and their blood still flows through modern Greek veins. This amazing revelation started with ancient teeth from 19 people. Not very glamorous, but wildly powerful when it comes to genetic time travel. Scientists scraped genetic code from 10 Minoan teeth found on Crete, dated to between 2900 and 1700 BC, plus 4 Mycenaean teeth from mainland Greece circa 1700 BC, and lastly 5 early Bronze Age farmers' teeth from Greece around 5400 BC. The scientists then compared this ancient genome stew to 334 people from across the ancient world and 30 modern Greeks to see who matched whom. And voila! The Minoans and the Mycenaeans were confirmed to be practically cousins. They shared about 75% of their DNA with early farmers from Greece and Anatolia. That means before Poseidon ever cursed a boat or a minotaur was trapped in a labyrinth, these early farmers were laying the genetic foundations of what would become Greek civilization. The Mycenaeans, those mainland warriors with their war-inspired artwork and their let's go conquer energy, also had a little something extra. Between 4% and 16% of their DNA came from northern steppe ancestors, from Eastern Europe and Siberia. This second wave of migration likely rolled in through Eastern Europe or Armenia, giving the Mycenaeans their militaristic edge. Meanwhile, over on Crete, the Minoans were keeping it chill. No war murals, no spear collections, just dark-eyed, dark-haired elegance and flair for complex art. Although someone speculated they were part Egyptian because of their script, the DNA has now proven they were genetically linked to the Mycenaeans on the mainland. And today, the DNA of both the Mycenaeans and the Minoans is mixed into the bodies of all modern Greek people. Despite wars, empires, plagues, invasions, and more cultural mashups than a global music festival, modern Greeks still carry the same genetic blueprint as their Bronze Age ancestors. This is pretty wild considering the Aegean region has spent thousands of years as the world's busiest historical highway. If you've ever wondered why your Greek uncle is obsessed with olives, strategy, and quoting Homer at dinner, it might be in the genes. If you yourself have Greek heritage, then you, my friend, could be related to warriors like Ajax or Achilles. You could have fragments of Siberian horse lord DNA in your veins. This research is a game changer and opens up an entirely new genetic chapter of Mediterranean history. But what does this mean in the topic of world domination? Let's say you're Greek. You're not just walking through the ruins of your ancestors. You are the ruins. The same people who built Mycenae's Lion Gate, who danced through Minoan frescoes,
who may have ticked off a few gods along the way, are part of your DNA. And if you live anywhere outside Greece, I think you'll agree that your Mycenaean ancestors succeeded in world domination. Because all of these centuries later, their bloodline lives on in people across the globe. Civilizations may rise and fall, but blood is forever. Thanks for watching. Who do you believe really ruled the ancient world? Or maybe a better question is, who ruled it best? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!